Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Cheap Seats. That's actually our discount code, by the way. This is the name of the show. Welcome to the Cheap Seats, your Premier League podcast, and we talk all things Premier League. This week is the transfer window. It closes on Friday. It's the deadline. So we got the full crew here to talk about their teams, who they need, what they've done so far. Are they going to be sleeping well on Thursday night, or are they going to be waiting until midnight to see if their club does any work? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before, remember, this show is sponsored by Classic Shirts ZA, and you could go to their website at Classic Shirts ZA for all the shirts of the Premier League and any other teams across Europe. But this week's shirt of the week is Manchester United third kit. I put a bit of a legend there for Wahid just to, make it feel good. But I hear you've got this acquisition, Wahid. You made a quick buy.
I do, and that's Roy Keane, who obviously ruined many childhoods for the other people in this podcast.
Thank you. In case we didn't know, remember you can get that at Classic Shirts today. Cheapseats 99.
Roy Keane created Erling Haaland, by the way. If it weren't for Roy Keane's absolute moments of madness, we wouldn't have an unhappy Alf Inge Haaland, which then leads to
the cyborg himself.
Yeah.
Yes. So today's show, so we got everyone here going through. Remember, we also have an audio podcast on Spotify. Just search for the Cheap Seats, as well as on Apple Podcasts. So we've expanded the brand. Please share widely. Let everybody know that we are moving into the podcast universe. So what I love about deadline day, it's like Christmas Day. You get the Harry Redknapp car interviews, you get all the weird and wonderful signings. I remember as an Arsenal fan waiting for Mesut Ozil to sign on deadline day, and you're like, who are we getting? Is he coming? Is he not? And there's some clubs here at the top who are going to be doing that, and we're going to be talking about a lot of that today. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through the top 7 teams and discussing their transfer matters and business, and then also looking at what else they need to go into up until deadline day or the next 2 days in order to just strengthen the team, meet those expectations we spoke about in the first show, that type of vibe. So because we always like to do things in order, sorry, Chelsea, we're going to start with Manchester City and have a look at their transfer business. I'm going to go to Jean-Emile for this one because I think he's probably going to have a little bit more. They spent 160 odd million on 3 signings: Jeremy Doku, Jesper Guardiola, as well as Mateo Kovacic. But they've also obviously sold for about 89 million. They've sold Laporte, Mahrez, Gundogan, a guy named Liam Charles for 15 million, and James Trafford, who is the Burnley keeper. Who's gone to Burnley now. To be a goalkeeper there. What do you make of their business, Jean-Emile?
I have to say that the signing of Guardiola was an immense signing, just in terms of the fact that they already had such a plethora of defensive players. And obviously they've sold Laporte, which I think his writing was on the wall. They made a decent amount of profit on him as well. Not profit, at least a decent amount of money. But Guardiola was that signing which you kind of say to yourself, they've just won a treble, and now they've gone and even strengthened that back line, which was so imperious to begin with. So, I mean, that's just a sign of a champion mentality, we can say that. Gundogan is quite a big loss because, he provided the big goals in the big games. And Kovacic is obviously a great player. And he's done very well in the first couple of matches as well. And I think that was quite astute. But I think City should have pushed much more for Alexis McAllister as a replacement for Gundogan. I think that would have been really like the icing on the cake for their midfield. That being said, still they are the team to beat. They've won their first 3 games in a row. And I think basically, if they can get Erling Haaland to the same level as last season, pretty much they almost guaranteed champions.
Yeah. Well, Pep's discovered Julian Alvarez in a front two. But Cyrus, is there anybody that they could get? I know Jean-Emile spoke about trying to get Alexis McAllister but obviously he's gone to Liverpool. But is there somebody in the next 2 days that you think Man City should be going for? Or do they just go to bed at 8 p.m. on Thursday night and be like, it's fine, we'll just sit and watch everyone on Sky Sports?
I think the thing is they've got all of this Sky Sports stuff paid up in full, so they're ready to sit back and watch. But I think that they've done most of their business up front. The thing, though, is whether or not that business will be at the level that it needs to be at in order to keep them at the level that they were last season. Because as much as they've lost Gundo and Mahrez, they haven't necessarily replaced them with like-for-like replacements. Because Mahrez was one of those kinds of players who would unlock a defense, not necessarily just run down the flank and try and use some skill, much like you'd see from a Doku, who I really love. And the other thing is the loss of Kevin De Bruyne through injury is going to be a major issue for them, particularly as I think this is the point in his career where injuries are going to be a constant. And the signing of Kovacic does one thing. It gives you some creativity, but Kovacic is not a goal scorer. And I think that's where they'll miss the Gundogans because he's not.
But they've got Rodri now. He just seems to be scoring out of everywhere.
Well, at some point the Rodri well might dry up, and you're not necessarily asking him to do all of that consistently. He comes in when nobody else is managing it. And so I'm looking at City and I'm thinking maybe they do need to try and find somebody who could, get a goal, on the odd occasion. But I just don't think that they're going to be rushing to the market to do it. Just weird things happening today, though, because stories about Chelsea coming in for Cole Palmer, and that might also have some issues. There's weird stuff happening right now.
But that's why we love this week, right? You'll just hear weird things like, Emil Smith-Rowe going to Chelsea. Let's move on to the team that supposedly many people say bottled it, but we didn't. Kent, we didn't bottle it. They chased us down.
The glass structure around you guys is just a dome of sorts,
Yeah. Arsenal spent just over 200 million on Havertz, Rice, Timber, David Raya, which is another 30 million. So you can add that onto that 211, whatever you want to call it. And Arsenal's big thing in this window was actually obviously getting Declan Rice, right? I think Timber was a plus because we need a cover on the right. Kai Havertz is Mikel, it's your pet project. But Arsenal's question is obviously going to be, and the success of this window, Kent, is obviously how we get value for the players who are trading on their own, essentially, right? Obviously, Pepe is now in the squad because he's apologized, but Tierney went out on loan. Xhaka has been sold for 21 million. Matt Turner's gone for 10. The question obviously is where Balogun's going. Is that where we're going to rate this transfer window for Arsenal? Or was it just we got Declan Rice and it's Rice, baby, all the way?
Now, can I just say, the way to rate Arsenal's transfer window will be whether they win the Premier League in March or April. They've got one hand on the trophy. We're just going to run with that for now.
We won't be doing that juju. We don't do that juju. Kent?
That is. I was expecting that from Wahid. But yeah, I think in terms of incomings, the biggest incoming we needed was the Declan Rice transfer. It was in my opinion, a statement signing, and I would say it also just shows maybe some mentality switch that Arsenal are being serious and they put in their money where their mouth is, kind of thing. And Rice also kind of rejecting some bigger clubs in Europe to come to Arsenal. So there's a lot of excitement around that sighting. So we started the window really well, and it's kind of like gone down, not downhill, but it hasn't. There was a lot of excitement at the beginning, and now I think there's a few questions that still have to be answered. I thought Timber was going to be probably one of the best signings of the window of any club. Having watched him play, he just seemed like a player that fits effortlessly into Arsenal's system. He can play right back, he can play left back, and he can play centre back. and his injury has kind of just popped the balloon kind of thing over the excitement. With the Havertz transfer, it's something that we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of hungry Chelsea fans that are praying for his demise. I think there's a lot of like bets whether
Well,
who's
look, they got
gonna be his
65
flop.
million, so
Yeah, but there's bets already between him and Mount as the biggest flop. So I think Havertz will need time. What I am scared of is that I think Mikel Arteta might. Sometimes he has this stubbornness where he'll start a player, and if it's not working, he will carry on playing the player. So at the moment, it seems like Havertz is maybe not best suited for the system at the current moment, based on maybe his confidence. But yeah, I just feel maybe Arsenal have used these first 3 games as more of a way to experiment a bit, playing Partey at right back. It's very weird at the moment. But like you say, the outgoings, I think if we can get rid of a few outgoings, it might prevent us from having to do a shock sale. There's rumors of Gabriel maybe being linked to Saudi, and there's now been rumors of
that's not gonna happen.
Emil Smith Rowe going to Chelsea.
ESR needs to leave.
Or
in
maybe
my head, he needs to go to a club where he can play.
That Gabriel one just has like Aubameyang vibes on it. It's just like it's just weird to me.
It's very
He
weird.
was brilliant last season.
No, he was brilliant, and I don't think there's any Arsenal fans that don't like him. But I think it might be a bit of his agent just piping up with him not having started any of the first 3 games. Maybe it's just to cause some uneasiness. I don't know. But Gabriel and Saliba felt they formed one of the best
pairing in the league.
Yeah. So
you know,
it's a strange one. But Gabriel has come on and he's done really well with coming off the bench, especially against Palace and in our first game. Pepe and I would say I guess Tierney had to leave, and then Tavares seems like he's off to Forest. There is Deadwood, but United and Arsenal are just well known for being so
Kent,
bad at selling.
One question for you: 50 million for Smith Rowe. Are you taking it?
I take it, but based on how we will maybe replace that money, or I'll take it so that Gabriel doesn't have to leave. I think we would only sell Gabriel because of a financial benefit of it.
But here's the thing, right? So you're selling Balogun to Monaco for about 40 million, and then if you let go of ESR, you don't need to kind of do the whole FFP to get Gabriel out. But
yeah, exactly. That's how I see it. And Smith Rowe only played about 6-7 games last season. It was quite a weird one. He had such a good season 2 seasons ago, but he could also be a new signing in a sense. He was missed last.
Where's he going to play? You've got Kai Havertz sitting in the middle of the field.
Oh, we need
behind
depth,
Fabio Vieira.
We bottled the league last year because of depth, so we need depth.
And you didn't even have Champions League last year.
Yeah,
and so that's the key thing. I want to jump in here because there's some very interesting points, and I think obviously Arsenal fans will not necessarily talk about the club in glowing terms.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a few things that really do jump out here. The first one being that clearly there's a need to balance the books. The Declan Rice splashing of the cash was a great declaration, see what I did there, of intent. But the other thing, though, is that it says one thing. It's a bit like a guy who goes to a strip club and drops all the money he can and then tries to pick up as many double and triple shifts afterwards in order to try and make the money back. That if you want to play with the big boys, you have to be able to then handle what comes with it. And I think that's the key thing that I'm seeing from Arsenal this season, is that signing of Havertz almost as a squad player doesn't deal with some of the issues that Arsenal have, which for me are up front. If Gabriel Jesus is not there, is Eddie Nketiah really the solution? And I think that kind of something that has bothered me.
Which is why I'm angry Balogun is going to Monaco. Jean-Emile, how's my boy going to be doing at Monaco?
Balogun?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think pretty well. I think he can suit their style very well. I mean, yeah, it suits him down to a T. I don't know how much of a loss it is for Arsenal at this stage. You know, it is a kind of depth that you want.
Mm. For me, it's a
But
massive loss, but Mikel's
Balogun wins
Mikel.
the French league as well pretty well already.
Yeah.
I think Balogun is kind of just one of those things where it's a high risk, high reward. If we kept him, um, I just never even thought that he would stay. I just knew he would always leave. Whether we sell Eddie or whether we sell Balogun, I would have probably the more exciting one would be Balogun, but Eddie is he's consistent as a second choice striker.
Yes, and that's the thing. I think Eddie's comfortable being a number 2, whereas Balogun wants to be
he
a
wants to
number
start.
1. And it's that type of mentality that irritates me at Arsenal. I want guys to be chasing number 1. But anyway, let's move over to the noisy neighbors, the other noisy neighbor. Wahid, you guys have spent 174 million pounds, 170 million pounds there on 3 players, and Johnny Evans came back. Well done. I think that
He hasn't signed yet.
He hasn't. Okay.
No, he
And
hasn't signed it. Yeah.
so you signed a striker who scored 9 goals for 72 million. You got Onana for 47, and then Chelsea fleeced all of us, but Mount for 55. You let go of Fred, De Gea, Elanga, Williams, struggling to get rid of Donny and Maguire, Hendo and Bailly. Is that where this window is going to be for you? I know that obviously there's questions around and there's rumors around Sophie and Amrabat. Maybe if you're going to go ask Dean for Regulon, or you're going to ask Cyrus for Kukurea, and maybe do the whole hair pull thing. But so how do you feel about your window so far?
Not that great, to be perfectly honest. I thought that it was headed in the right direction a couple of weeks ago. And I'll say that I was never really a fan of Mason Mount, and people who follow this podcast will know that I've never really rated him. So I found it quite weird for us to be chasing a player like that.
Karma, by the way.
I actually love that move more than anything that's happened this transfer. That's even more than Caicedo signing for Chelsea.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've watched Mason Mount and what the managers asked him to do, and we discussed that at length last week. And whether he's good or not, I'll leave that. I'll leave that for future episodes. I thought that the Onana transfer was very astute, and I think that we sorted out a bad situation with our goalkeeping from last season. De Gea was nowhere close to being at the level required. Onana's come in. He's actually stats-wise third best keeper in the league at the moment in terms of expected goals and that sort of thing. I think he saved 3 expected goals, which puts him third in the league. Just very decent start for him so far. I think the stuff that he hasn't saved probably wouldn't be expected to be saved. And we've sorted out the Dean Henderson situation. Seemingly, he will be unveiled as a Crystal Palace player later today, and we're signing some second choice keeper from Turkey, which isn't a bad situation. I've always been one to say that you actually need clear choices in your goalkeeping department, and I didn't quite enjoy the De Gea Henderson situation. So we got Mount in, we got Onana in, we got Højlund in, and it seemed like United were doing pretty good work in terms of getting their targets in really quickly. However, we're back to a situation, and I feel we've been in this situation every year for the last 5 or 6 years, is we're getting towards the end of the window and you still feel like we're 1 or 2 short. We've let Fred go and we haven't replaced, and we are very, very bad with moving players on. And it seemed like we needed to move Maguire on to get a player more suited to the manager's profile in. We were unable to do so. We're now scrounging around at the end of the window trying to fill the squad a little bit, and I always say that it's a sign of badly run clubs if you need to scrounge around at the end of the window looking for a loan deal here or there to finish your squad, and that's what it strikes me as. I don't think Man United should be scrounging around with a day and a half to go for loan deals for the likes of Kukurea and Amrabat. Kukurea was really good at Brighton, but I'm not sure if that was his level or Chelsea was his level. I'm actually not sure. He had a shocking season at Chelsea, and it seems like we're taking Chelsea scraps there to fill a hole in the squad. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that in terms of the fact that we have Alvaro Fernandez, and Man United have always been a club who give you young players a chance. And I mean, you look at the likes of Marcus Rashford, and if it wasn't for injuries, would Marcus Rashford have ever gotten his chance? And that's how you figure out if the player's good enough. You throw them in the deep end when the chips are down. So it irritates me a little bit that we're going to look outside of a player who left Real Madrid and turned down Manchester City, Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona to come to Man United as a young player, and has done relatively well both on loan and during preseason. So that irritates me a little bit. The Amrabat one, I'm unconvinced he's any good. I've watched bits and pieces of him, and he seems like a good progressor of the ball in terms of his horizontal play. I'm not sure his vertical play is very good, though. United probably don't need someone with much more vertical play because we have
Did you watch him on YouTube?
Yeah, and a bit last season in the Conference League.
Dean's domain.
I watched him a bit in the World Cup too. We've got lots of players who are very good with their vertical passing, so he might be someone to calm things down and bring more of the horizontal play into it. But I'm just
We're going
unconvinced.
to play a double pivot.
I'm just
with
unconvinced he's
Casemiro.
very good defensively. I'm really unconvinced that he's
so
that
it's
good
defensive.
defensively, and he's going to come into a squad as a defensive midfielder, and I'm yet to be convinced that he's going to be good in the Premier League. But I'm not even convinced he's that good overall as a defensive midfielder. So overall, I'm not that stoked. As usual, Man United can't shift players because of historical enormous contracts given to very average players.
If Ryan Gravenbach becomes available tomorrow and you get him, would that be a win?
No.
Or even add Højbjerg to that. Would you take Højbjerg over Amrabat?
Højbjerg and Amrabat are on the same level for me. I'm unconvinced either are very good. Gravenbach is a player profile that is quite similar to what we have in the squad already, and I don't think it's anything different from a McTominay or that type of profile. So I'm not sure how he's going to enhance the squad. At least Amrabat is a different profile, or Højbjerg is a different profile, and probably more of the profile that we need to add to the squad. It just has Christian Poulsen vibes from Liverpool all those years ago, like scrounging around on deadline day looking for a player, and turns out to be absolute shit.
And Liverpool's just taking hits, yeah.
What about Thomas Gravison to Real Madrid?
Oh, remember that one? Oh my word!
Yeah,
I think that was a money laundering thing, honestly.
Well, look, there's plenty of potential money laundering things, but just to I think the Højbjerg transfer to United would be a really great move for United, because yes, people give Spurs a lot of grief and what have you, but Højbjerg is actually a fantastic player. And the other thing is he can absolutely weigh in with goals, possibly more worldies than Fred. Højbjerg plays more like a Brazilian than Fred does. So don't knock him just yet.
I'm not knocking him. I'm not convinced that any of them are going to elevate that squad enough to make a significant difference. And I think the other thing you need to remember with Man United is that right now we are looking for deals where the manager obviously needs players, but the club are sort of saying to the manager, well, we don't have money. And that sort of seems like the boat we're in right now.
Wyatt, how do you feel about always buying players from the Eredivisie or who have played under Ten Hag? It seems like
it worries me. It worries me, and the fact of the matter is, Man United aren't playing well at the moment, and like if we play devil's advocate and we go down this road and say Man United don't play well for the next 6 months, and we in a Ole season 2 version 2 of season 3 of Ole's reign, and come December the results are really bad. If the club pull the trigger on Ten Hag, which I'm never going to say is out of the realms of possibility, it is modern football, and every manager's 6 games away from the sack. You'll then have a team built in Ten Hag's image being managed by Nagelsmann or someone, and it makes absolutely no sense. I do really feel we've given the manager way too much power when it comes to the transfer dealings than is needed. And I know that in the past, a manager like Ferguson or Wenger would sign the players that they identified, but football's moved on from that, and you sort of need to look at club targets and sort of like with holistic planning for the future instead of signing players built for the manager in the seat at the moment, because that changes way too often in modern football.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think I look at Manchester United's window, and I'm worried because, as you say, you're 2 players short.
I was willing to back that for the first year, because I think the manager might have looked at that squad and thought that he needed players in his image to get into that squad, which was quite soft, and he needed warriors who would get that squad a little bit fired up. So a guy like Lisandro Martinez might be the type of player who the manager says, okay, this is going to be my lieutenant on the field. He comes with me. I know how he plays. I haven't had enough time to assess the squad and move forward, so I'm bringing my players in. Whereas 1 year on, that's unnecessary. The manager's had his time with the squad, and it can't just be players who played under Ten Hag in the Eredivisie or against Ten Hag. And that seems like the transfer, the sort of transfer policy we have at the moment.
Looks like tough times.
I think Casemiro is the only player we've signed in the last 2 years who had no former links with Ten Hag. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Looks like tough times at the Gargantuan Club. Dean, do we have a breaking news?
It's always fun when you're on Twitter these days. I'm worried about when we get into September because timeline's going to be dead. But yeah, it looks like Mateus Nunes to City is here we go.
That's
so
a good signing.
Very good signing for them. Wolves are just going down though. So bad.
I don't think they'll go down. I think
there are so many bad teams right now.
Oh,
I mean, Luton,
Everton.
Bournemouth, I don't think Everton are really trying their best to commit Harry Carey. So it's really tough in the league at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the guys who made it into the Champions League for the first time in a very, very long time. Newcastle, they realized that they're going to have more games, so they decided to go get Sandro Tonali, which he is shoe-in or just a sneaky pick for signing of the season. Then they got Lewis Hall on loan from Chelsea with that little buy option. Harvey Barnes, and I can't read my own handwriting. This is
Livramento.
Livramento, yes, from Chelsea. Dean,
from Southampton, but we'll take credit. When he's good, he'll be a Chelsea.
He is
lad.
very good. I think it. Dean, what do you make of their business? And it's not as flashy like Manchester City 10, 12 years ago when they went Robinho and big names, but this is serviceable players that fit into a squad and don't make a lot of noise.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised because I thought now with Newcastle getting Champions League football, they're going to really sort of splash that cash, get some sort of big name signings and sort of put their hammer down. But I had an early call that Sandro Tonali might be one of the flops of the season, and I'm going to turn that around right now. Like watching him play for the first 3 games, I'm like, okay.
You didn't watch any.
I got that one wrong. No, I got that one wrong.
We don't watch Serie A in this household.
Sandro Tonali, I think he fits that team really well, and I also think the signing of Harvey Barnes as a replacement.
Dean just has a historical hatred towards all Italians.
Yeah, Conte included. So
this sounds like it stems from a high school incident.
Yeah,
maybe we'll get to the
little bit after that, but okay.
But I do think the Harvey Barnes signing to replace Sam Maximin was also really good business. Like Eddie Howe's got that team sort of playing the way I think he wants to play, and they've had some really good performances so far. I think they were fairly decent against City. Liverpool was, I mean, sometimes it just sort of happens. I know Jean's laughing, but like they were in control of that game for like 75 minutes and just absolutely let go. So
Darwin Núñez feels like a new sign.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see. The one thing I want to see is when Champions League does start, how heavily they rotate that side with Trippier and Livramento and now Lewis Hall on the left. Like what's Eddie going to do with all of these games? But so far, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, Cyrus, Lewis Hall. How do you feel about losing him? Because I thought he'd be
Yeah.
back
Look,
up at
Can
Chelsea.
can I just add to this question, Cyrus? How do you feel culturally that you keep losing academy graduates? Like,
so
and good
it's
and
an
highly rated,
interesting.
not the ones that you've cast aside. It's the ones that you actually are going to be Premier League stars. Is that not a cultural issue at Chelsea?
I think it is by and large, but I also think much like when I made that comment about Arsenal having to spend money to sell players in order to make the money back. The best value Chelsea is ever going to make is off academy players. The
Yes.
graduates are worth money. They've played in the Premier League and they've showed that they can actually play at teams in the league and especially at a high level. So I look at it from a business perspective and I say, okay, I can understand why the club would sell those guys in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, especially somebody like Chalobah, who might be going soon, or potentially even Conor Gallagher. These guys have played in the league. They've showed that they are capable. Now, there is obviously always going to be an issue when you have a sense of not necessarily having that link to the academy, where these youngsters we've seen come through the ranks, are suddenly performing, but. There are loads of teams in this league who've done well, who haven't necessarily had academy graduates be central to what happens to their success. Chelsea have done that for many years before. I think the thing here is they have to hold on to the absolute superstars, which I think is the key thing. The only issue with that, though, is how do you do that if the path to the first team is blocked? Because the players will turn around and say, nope, it's not for us. And you've seen it over the years. Musiala, for instance, is a Chelsea Academy graduate who decided to move on very early. There's loads of other names that will come up. So it is a bit of a cultural issue. But going back to the point, I think Lewis Hall is going to be great for
Declan
Newcastle. Declan Rice. There's plenty of them. Although Rice wasn't necessarily considered one of the top talents when he left. He was a good player who went in and sought greener pastures.
He was actually excluded. They released him, and he found West Ham.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Newcastle. I think they did quite a great job. Even that Alison Maximan 23 million they got.
I just want to add to the Newcastle thing here, because yes, we're talking about their business now, but their business now really has to be seen in relation to their business last season. That the guys that they've brought in now are really just helping out the guys who were brought in. Like Alexander Isak, you know how I felt about this guy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you are the captain of the Isak fan club.
Let it be known. And his accent is incredible. You must listen to it.
I don't know what that accent
What is going on? But the other thing, though,
is there Anthony Gordon.
Exactly. Who, by the way, Chelsea were being berated for looking at when his name came up last season. But a great player in that Newcastle side. And I think the biggest issue for me actually is their defense. That I look at the Dan Burns and I'm like, no, this cannot be allowed to persist. And I think that's where the Lewis Halls need to step up. Because I think you're going to see a different Newcastle once he's integrated into that system. Dan Burn is a lovely fella, but no.
He can be a cone at times.
Yeah, that he can.
Yeah. Okay. Jean, Liverpool's summer was all about the midfield. It was about the midfield. It was about either getting guys out, putting guys in. And then you ended up with three midfielders who I think wasn't bad business. I'm going to call Zobo for 60 million, McAllister for 35. You brought in Endo as well for 16. You let go of a whole lot of midfielders, some on a free. Hendo went to go join Steven Gerrard, which baffles me a lot. But anyway, we'll wish him all the best. Is there anything else that you need? Because it looks a little light as well right now, even though it looked promising.
Just sorry for the noise because I'm at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. I'm trying to see if there's any former Ajax players maybe passing through because I'm desperate at this stage. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess, quite honestly, because we've let go of 7 players and we've only brought in 3. We have the second smallest squad in the Premier League after Crystal Palace, and we've got the Europa League fixtures, which are going to stretch our squad absolutely death. And you know our records with injuries is terrible. Midfielders, I mean, Soboslai could be the signing of the season. Quite honestly, he is unbelievable. McAllister, suits the role perfectly as well. And Endo is a solid player, but I mean, Liverpool needs at least one class
I
central
actually
defense.
thought he looked well short on
He
the
did,
weekend. I thought he looked
it's
very slow.
yeah, well, he's playing against 11 players, and it's the second match in a row that he came in with a man down. So you can't judge him at all, and it's his second game. What I will say is that Liverpool desperately needs a centre back, and I'll say that they definitely need another midfielder which can go straight in, the like of Sheikh Doucouré, possibly Kefran Turam, Manu Kone, Ryan Gravenbach. These are all names which have been touted around. Gravenbach is possibly the most likely at this stage. Doucouré's price put Liverpool off completely. It seems that they've got the money. It's just a case of if they value the player high enough, they'll go for him like they did with Caicedo. But even that's being called a bit of a PR stunt right now, which is, that was an absolute mess. And it just shows that we are lacking in terms of having a proper sporting director. Yogesh Makta has just not done a very good job.
I said last week, but Calvin Phillips would be so perfect for you guys.
Too injury prone in my books. That's the only problem. I think he can find his form again. I think Klopp can get his confidence back up after his dismal spell at Manchester City. But
you guys signed a former Arsenal legend, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. So injury prone is really not something you're too worried about. If anything, he'd probably fit the mold.
Have you heard of Naby Keita?
Yeah, that's true. Him too.
I don't know. Apparently, those asthma pumps cure a lot of things.
So, Jean-Emile, you'll be up until midnight, it seems, tomorrow, trying to see if you can get players through, right? Obviously, you're looking at Gravenbach, because he can come on a loan, I'm assuming. But obviously, you said you needed a centre back. There's rumors about Salah leaving. How true are they?
The interest is very big from Al Ittihad, as it is for Joe Gomez, as it is for Ibrahima Konate. These are the latest moves. I think Al Ittihad, there's a big Liverpool fan in there somewhere who wants to go through our entire team, possibly destabilize it because their owners are the same as Newcastle's, which again, if we look at the Alan Saint-Maximin transfer, Newcastle's owners just sold to themselves. So we have to bear in mind that it's not really business we can really take seriously. Basically, if they had come for Salah at the start of the window with a huge offer, we would have likely sold. Now it's too late.
Wow. What centre backs are you looking for? Mark Gahey, probably from Crystal
Salah's
Palace?
gone.
We possibly would have looked at the Sporting Lisbon defender Ignacio, but honestly, it's very quiet. We put all of our eggs into the basket for Colwell, but I mean that was a non-starter, and he's Chelsea through and through. And I mean, again, just stinks of bad management because you can't have.
And that's why we bought Lavia. Okay, that's why we bought Lavia. Right? Don't come in for our guys. We will come at you.
Yeah, well, Chelsea have been coming at everybody hard, and we're going to be going to them as well. But wow, that's a interesting thing. What are your expectations for the season? Because we haven't had you on the show for our expectations, and I think he's
looks like Jean might be frozen.
Yeah. Okay.
At least
we'll just wait for Jean to get himself back. Yeah. Okay. Dean, Ange Ball. You guys are already out of a trophy, and it's
we gave up the energy drink cup so that Levy could spend his money. Relax, don't worry about it.
Like, dude, it was the wildest thing. Yes, I'm like, why is Dean angry at Davinson Sanchez? And then I'm like, oh snap, they're out of the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, it wasn't our finest hour, but to be fair, we did rotate 9 players, and I think this kind of ties into the transfer window. What it does highlight is how poor Spurs reserves team is. Like, the quality is just not there. They literally looked like it was back to playing Nuno ball, not even Conte ball. So I think it highlighted a lot of the players that need to go that aren't kind of shaping up to what Ange wants, and hopefully that's the kind of to be honest, like, I can understand also why Ange did it. It's a second round cup tie against Carabao in the Carabao Cup. Like, if you don't play them, then when are you going to play them? So right decision to probably do it, but result was pretty terrible. And
Yeah. Spurs
we'll
had an
see.
interesting summer because Harry Kane finally left for 100 million. You also sold Harry Winks, which was an interesting one. Yesterday, Jet Spence went on loan to Leeds, but it was the incomings that were quite interesting. Obviously, you got Nicky van der Ven, some guy from Brazil named Veliz, or some South American named Veliz. You got Mano Solomon, because this is all YouTube FC. I managed to get James Madison was the one on 40 million, goalkeeper named Vicario for 17, and obviously Kulusevski's deal was made permanent because, it's something that Spurs normally do. How do you rate this? Because there's a lot of guys I don't know. This is YouTube FC, but from what we've seen, Mickey van der Ven looks like he's Premier League okay-ish. But how do you rate the summer?
Yeah, I think if I had to get it out of 10 at the moment, it'd probably be about 6.5, 7. I think the biggest problem is, and we mentioned it on previous shows, where it's 1 or 2 injuries to that starting 11 and the whole system's derailed, and again, we're just not moving the deadwood. So I think James Madison is up there for me, at least, of one of the signings of the season, just in terms of he walks into that team, immediately puts the quality in, and it's kind of clear for everyone to see. And I think if he had gone to a City or a United or a Chelsea, he would have done the exact same sort of thing. So for me, definitely one of the signings of the season. And yeah, you say YouTube FC, but the kids are performing. Mickey van der Ven is 22 years old. We've sort of taken one of the older squads last year and turned them into one of the younger squads this year. And they definitely seem to be sort of performing the way that they need to. I'm very happy with Vicario in goal. He looks like a really good signing. Mickey van der Ven, we've mentioned. I also think Destiny we signed last year, but went back on loan to Udinese. He looks like he's been playing in the Premier League forever. So I'm really happy with the sort of starting 11. For me, the big thing over the next 2 days of the transfer window is trying to move out all of our players. Like, hopefully it appears that there's a Lloris is on the list, but like Eric Dyer is there. Ndombele is there.
Dyer, Ndombele,
Davinson
Jack
Sanchez,
Sanchez, Lloris, Hoiberg,
it's all these
Reguilon.
names where you just say, like, why are you still
Hopelessness
there?
FC. Yeah.
Like, and it just proves that they don't have the quality to even try and play in a whole new system. Like we mentioned with United, if Ten Hag has to leave, they've got a bunch of players that can play a sort of Ten Hag methodology. These players couldn't even play a Conte methodology, let alone a Ange ball. So like, it's just players that don't deserve to be at the club. And again, classic Spurs, leaving it to too late. I'm quite interested to see who we do bring in, though. Ansu Fati into the Premier League. He's getting a lot of traction.
Forget
I'm
about
seeing, I'm seeing that, and I must
Ansu
say,
Fati is
I'm
a
really
very big
excited
name.
for you. Like, if that does happen, I mean, look, we joked about Crocked FC, but the thing about him is that he's just such a clever footballer, and there's a major issue for me with Spurs at the moment, and not only has Heung-min Son gone backwards, he doesn't seem to know exactly what he's supposed to do in Ange Postecoglou's system. And perhaps that's because you're still playing Richarlison, who, frankly, I think we all know needs to be helping Sanchez pack his bags at present. Maybe you'll find some form, but I'm just not sure. I don't know if you've got enough goals in you. That's the key thing for me.
Do you need strikers in the next 2 days?
And that's why we're looking at the biggest place we're looking to improve over the next 2 days is up front. Like, Brennan Johnson from Forest is a name being thrown around. Ansu Fati is another one. And it's guys like that where, I think Ansu Fati, if it's a loan with a bit of an obligation or an option, it makes sense. I don't kind of want to let him use Spurs as a training.
Giovanni Dos Santos version 2.0.
Oh, goodness.
We'll see.
Gio had his moments. I mean, if he's Eric or not Lamela, but Lamela or Lo Celso, I mean, geez, then you're talking bad news. But surely there are other strikers. I mean, I just saw something about who from Leicester. Interest in Iheanacho.
Iheanacho to Palace.
And frankly, I mean, for Palace, that's a great signing. That's a great signing. But there are
from Edward.
there are footballers out there. So I'm always quite surprised when, I mean, last week I mentioned Bournemouth, and I always bring up the Chelsea lads here. But someone like a Dom Solanke could potentially do more than Richarlison.
Sorry, they've got Kane money now. They've
I
got
think
Kane. Let them spend
I think
Kane
what's
money.
the plan
Dean
is that
himself
we
could
can
do more than Richarlison.
look. I think what the plan is going to be Son through the middle and get Kulusevski or Manuel Solomon on the right, and then like an Ansu Fati on the left, hopefully, or someone new up on the left. And I agree with you, Cyrus. It's unfortunate that in this new system, the wingers need to stay wide, and in all previous systems, Son is so used to cutting in, and I think there is a bit of a struggle there. So hopefully it plays out. He's got the quality to kind of show it. But yeah, we'll see what happens over the next few days. But so far, 6 and 7.
Is there any more news on Tapsoba?
Yeah, so that's the interesting one. Apparently, we need to get rid of defenders before we
you bring guys
want to look to sign in. So Eric Dyer leaving and Sanchez leaving, I think, then opens the door to a Tapsoba, who we've been looking at basically for I think I've been watching YouTube videos since June of work. So we'll wait and see about that. And then
Dean, have you got a premium? Have you got a premium subscription yet, or do you still have?
Premium, don't worry.
Not beating the allegations there, Dean.
But
not beating
those
watching
the YouTube videos with ads in.
Yeah. The other name being thrown around is Piers Skurs, a defender from Torino, but again,
another YouTube sensation.
So
okay, let's move on from YouTube FC to.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, so let's move on from YouTube FC to Hollywood FC or Hollywood FC Light. This team spent 391 million in bringing players in, and they've managed also to sell quite a lot because of the Saudi Arabian situation. Some valuations are questionable, but Chelsea.
I would like some auditors in there, guys. Those related party transactions just seem they're screaming out for an
just
auditor.
Agreeing everywhere.
Bring them on.
Literally,
bring them on.
Chelsea went into the transfer market and were like, I want him. Price is not an option. And Disasi, Lavia.
That's technically not true, because we said price was not an option. Then we said it was an option, and then others tried to gazump us, and then we're like, okay, fine, price is not an option. So
But I think, Cyrus, the most impressive thing about your summer is the fact that you managed to let go of an entire 11 of players, all those that third team that was playing on the second field. Those guys are gone, and you managed to bring in 220 million on that.
As much as people talk about the Saudis, we've sold people to Man United and Arsenal, and frankly, neither of you are Saudis. And I think this is the platform for which I will start, getting on the stump and really railing at everybody. But the reality is that there has been a lot of business in and a lot of business out, and I think that they're trying their best to create some sort of semblance of a football club that is actually, trying to move forward from last season. But the business as a whole, there's a lot of deals that wouldn't necessarily have happened if injury hadn't been a thing. So, for instance, Disasi, I don't think would have been signed if Fofana hadn't gotten hurt. And frankly, I'm really now wishing that Fofana never got hurt, because Axel Disasi is also Axel de Headaches. Maybe he'll get better. He's just looked really.
It's actually, it was right there. It's Axel Disaster.
I didn't want to go there because those headlines write themselves, right? And the thing is, he's just like a weird Koulibaly. They are so similar. Yeah, and I thought Koulibaly joining would have been great. Then I saw him and I was like, oh my God, this guy is slower than continental drift, slower than Conservative Party policies. There's just some really weird things happening. Anyway, to go back to the positives, you look at some of the other business, and this is also what was interesting, is that when Chelsea signed Nicholas Jackson, who is my pick for potential signing of the season, everyone said who, including Chelsea supporters. We also had our YouTube out, and man, the compilations were beautiful. So in between all of the the massive money signings in the Caicedos and the like, you have some really good business for players who you could see scouting was done. They did the hard work of actually going to find talent and really identifying it earlier. Nicholas Jackson could be potentially the signing that does that. And don't forget, the deal that actually was done last season, though it's being lumped into this season's business, is the Nkunku deal, who, when he eventually comes onto the pitch, will be a really, really important player. So this goes back to the whole thing around, so Emile Smith-Rowe, do we need him? And the reality is, Nkunku doesn't get injured. No, we're not even looking at in his direction or anybody else's. But this is where we are. We apparently don't want to give some of the other youngsters a chance to play in that sort of 10 role. And so it's just spend more money. I'm not actually for spending the money. In fact, I pretty much dislike it immensely. And maybe I'm in the minority in the Chelsea supporters here. But I'm just happy to see that the team has taken a different attitude going forwards.
I think you're an anomaly when it comes to normal Chelsea fans. You've been a historical fan. I think most fans are like kids who've watched lots of money getting spent. So I think this like really ignites that fire in a lot of Chelsea fans. They're probably more interested in the transfer window than the results.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably the case. I like, the weird thing for me is I remember, I could name players who wore the Coors kits, So I have been watching these guys for a long time, and the thing that I find the most intriguing, and this is also something that perhaps Arsenal and Man United fans don't necessarily have. Spurs fans, you don't even know. Watching the recent success is a hell of a drug because it pushes you to a level where everything needs to be about that. And the weirdness, especially in an Arsenal and a United sense, is watching the decline and then seeing somebody like City come up to the top is also one of those that must hurt a hell of a lot. So it takes its time.
Yeah. Cyrus, incomings and outgoings. Who's coming in? Who's going in the next 2 days?
Well, let's hope the Lukaku deal is the ink dry on it yet, because that really has to happen.
That was wild.
Roma fans broke the record for flight tracking yesterday. Tracking his flight.
But it goes to show you that there is, regardless of how many bridges the man burns, there will always be fans of that guy. And especially at a club like Roma, who Tammy Abraham has done quite well for them, but they've just underperformed. This will be heresy for a Chelsea supporter to say, but I think Mourinho's a lot of the big problem at Roma. They just haven't been able to take the next step going forwards. But Lukaku being one that's going out, I expect Chalobah to go. I really am loath to see Conor Gallagher go, though I do think that will probably be the next bit of business out. And I think guys like Callum Hudson-Odoi, he's probably on the way out, and that deal should also be done soon. He's going to be one of those where everyone's like, how did they let this guy go? But then he'll be as injury prone as Daniel Sturridge. So expect that to happen. Incomings,
okay, cool.
That's a tough one.
I think you guys are the right winger still. I could see
possibly somebody to go on either flank.
Yeah, because or someone that goes in the CM position, because you guys have been looking at Olise, Kudus, and you haven't built the profile of a player. At Smith Rowe kind of makes sense, but it would be a shock. As an Arsenal,
especially at that money. I mean, look, if we stole Emile Smith-Rowe for 25 mil, I'd be happy with that. If we pay 50 mil for him, it would be look. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying, because I actually really rate
outstanding though.
Yeah. Okay, guys. That's the top 7. Now the question is quickly, which other teams done good business for you? Quick fire. I'll start. I think West Ham spent the Declan Rice money really well. I'm a fan of Mohamed Kudus, and I think it works. Dean, any other team in the league that's done great work?
Yeah, my pick of the bunch was West Ham as well. I think also looking at, I think their performance against Brighton was kind of a exhibition.
They're sitting top 3.
Used to play. But they are playing really well, and I think they did spend it really wisely with that James Ward-Prowse Sort of that James will.
And they've kept Paqueta as well.
Yeah, I also think Villa though with Musa Diaby, he looks absolute quality.
Don't be coming in here walking all over our picks.
Don't. You can't choose
Cyrus,
two,
Aston
Dean.
Villa.
You can't choose two, Dean.
Yeah, and Paul stole my West Ham one, so now I'm just going for the first name.
That's
no, but
fine.
I
You
do
can
think
agree.
I do think Villa's done really well, but you guys can talk about that one. That's
Cyrus, Villa.
Look, guys, any team that brings in, the likes of Yuri Tillemans, and you're like, oh wow, that's a really good purchase. How did they manage to get that deal off the line? And then all of a sudden, you're seeing Pau Torres, you're seeing Musa Diaby, and then the one that's got me is Zaniolo, where I'm like, they literally paid nothing for this dude. And yes, he had a shocking miss over the weekend, but that's also to be expected as he acclimatizes. This Villa team has done sensational business. The biggest problem for them is losing Tyrone Mings, and he's so central to whatever good that happens for them. I do think they might need another central defender. I don't know if they're going to find one. In fact, maybe that's where Chalobah should go. Go to Villa, shore things up.
Okay, cool. Wahid?
I don't know. They took mine. Everton.
Okay. They've done nothing.
What about Nottingham Forest? Did they just do deals?
Forest is going on their spending spree. They were like, oh, we haven't signed someone. Cool. Callum Hudson-Odoi, Nuno Tavares. Let's go. Just everyone's coming.
Burnley for me. Oh, well, Kent, do you have a team?
No, mine was Aston Villa. I thought they bought really smartly, but Villa have in the history they've bought pretty well, but they've just never backed it, I would say, with results. All these players would always get injury prone or
they had a rubbish manager in Steven Gerrard. They gave him the keys to the house and he almost burnt it down.
But even before him.
Okay. When you're sitting at the end of the season, Kent, who will be the signing of the season?
I'm gonna go with Kovacic.
Dean?
Madison.
Cyrus?
Okay, now I'm going to pull a Dean and pick two. Madison, definitely. I actually wanted him in my fantasy team right from the beginning, but somehow I got cold feet. I think it's going to be Nicholas Jackson.
Okay. Wahid?
Declan Rice.
Wahid, come on.
Cool.
Don't do this to us. Don't do this to us.
No. I genuinely, if you look at my historical views on Declan Rice, I think he's phenomenal. I think he's one of the best players I've seen in a long time, and I'm very jealous of Arsenal getting that player because I think he's absolutely phenomenal, and I think that's a transformative signing. And I know I've had banter about Arsenal winning the league by March, but if Arsenal are up there come May in the title hunt, Declan Rice is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think mine will be. I'll go with Sandro Tonali. I think he's just class. I think he's
just to be different, huh?
Yes, because look, I'm not a fan of the Rice signing. I think Jurgen Timber was a better signing.
Can we talk about flop? Because I've got money on Moises Caicedo flopping hard at Chelsea.
Wahid, Cyrus, flops?
Who's at Man United?
Rasmus Højlund.
Rasmus Højlund.
No, I don't think so. In fact, if anything, I don't know if there's going to be a major flop. I do think that there will be certain players who don't live up to the expectation, depending on what the team's doing. So I might look at somebody weirdly like Szoboszlai. I don't think he'll be a major flop, but I think he might just not be. Everybody's loving him and he's doing all right at the moment. But
the same as the previous number 8 they got from Leipzig.
Yeah. Dean, flop of the season?
For me, it's Mount. All day.
Kent?
I'm going to also go with Mount.
I hate to say this because he's my brother, but I think Onana's going to be a flop. I honestly think so.
Oh,
and largely because of people in front of him.
Who sits down mid trying to say something.
Absolutely
not. Okay, guys.
No. The interesting thing is Wahid said that he's the third best goalkeeper, but the first best goalkeeper is YouTube FC Vicario in terms of shots stopped. So, again.
Okay, guys. Okay, let's end it there before people start throwing things virtually. Yeah, Man United playing Arsenal this weekend. Enjoy that. Have a great week in the Premier League. And yeah, hopefully the deadline day works for you and your team. Outside of that, goodbye and lesale kakagiso.